Creative Tech Podcast. Hi, I'm Kaori Ray, product designer and author. Our mission is to help people in their career and lives by sharing their creative and technology stories.
Okay, I can introduce myself. I'm Kaori, product designer, and then the organizer of this meetup. And then we have a podcast. It's called Creative Tech Podcast. Just interview two people who work at startup and encouraging startup ecosystem, creative people. Please check it. And then I am a Japanese, and my fun fact is I am so tiny size, small size, but I have a big hug. I'm good at to hug, so like a grizzly bear. So this is my fun fact. And then today I brought my special guest, and then our community mentor, Jared. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hello.
Hey, Jared.
Hi, my name is Jared. I'm from the United States of America. I've been in Japan for a little over 10 years now.
Which state?
From the magical state of Ohio.
Ohayou gozaimasu.
Yes, Ohio gozaimasu. For those of you not familiar with Ohio,
Potato.
that's Idaho.
Sorry,
Right.
wrong state.
Yeah, we're the good morning state.
Morning state.
Yeah.
What's famous things in Ohio?
Corn. We have lots of corn.
What is your fun fact, Jared?
My fun fact is I'm big size, but I have small heart and small arms for hugging.
Really, you are not good at to hug.
Yeah.
I see. Small hug. And then so in terms of DEI, so the reason why I chose him was so he is American, but he used to work at Japanese massive company, typical company, right?
I'd say traditional Japanese company. Yeah.
How was it?
Yeah. So I'll preface this with I do not consider myself a DEI expert or have any particular training in the field, but from 2015 to 2018, I did work at what I would call a very traditional, large Japanese company.
Advertising company.
Advertising, yeah, creative agency.
It's starting from D.
Yeah. But a big one, yeah. Actually, I'm just. Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna talk about today. Just my experience. So this isn't like any professional training or anything like that. But I'm curious, like for people here who are not Japanese, have you ever worked in a traditional Japanese company?
Oh yeah, you are.
Okay, we got a few big ones, small ones.
Big.
Okay, cool.
Big hugs.
Big hug.
Would anybody consider you worked at a Japanese black geisha?
Oh, really? You are?
Okay, good.
I'm not sure it's with that.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm not the only one.
That was the worst 6 months of my life.
Yeah. You lasted 6 months?
Yeah, I could for 6 months.
Okay. A black geisha, in my explanation, maybe someone can explain it better. It's in Japan what they call a company that essentially has like no rules, or they intentionally break like labor laws and circumvent rules for employees. So what we would consider DEI, that's the opposite of it. So going in the opposite direction.
Oh no.
Is kind of what I would call like a black geisha or black company. It's black as kind of like shadow and secrety and dark company. So one of the main things like a black company is that they don't compensate for overtime, and they're very kind of traditionally ran like the kind of like macho older dudes that have a very, kind of mindset that's reminiscent of a long time ago.
Where stereotypes about Japanese culture come from. Sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. And I think these companies, I think they're dwindling because what's been happening is they've been getting shamed. The government's been working on trying to bring light to the black companies here. But like yourself and me, we were in that environment. So I think that's what Kaori wanted me to maybe talk about a little bit.
Yeah, actually, I also used to work at same company in 10 years ago. Of course, department was different. My department was sports department to prepare for Tokyo Olympic 2020. And they said diversity is katakana, not the English. So what is diversity? I didn't know that because I couldn't speak English totally. So I had misunderstanding like diversity equal like odaiba, daiba. So and yeah, anyway, so and then of course at the time, like especially sports department. Yeah, I know. Sorry. Yeah. Sports department, many kind of salesperson, accountant people, they are from, they used to be a rugby 選手とか player or the baseball player, super macho type of Japanese guys. And then only like administrator assistants are like young lady who wear like typical clean Japanese women, so I was one of them. Yeah, and then so of course I realized, I knew it, this type of company, even salaries are different, female and male people. And also like LGBTQ or what can I say, like body type difference, so we shouldn't do laugh out. But at the time, for example, Japanese TV show use like LGBTQ. At the time, they didn't say LGBTQ, but like this type of sexuality people or different body type of people, we used as a comedian. At the time, 10 years ago. So, but we were lagging behind, right? So it was my experience, and then after that, I moved to New York. I work at credit card company in New York, and then I knew the fact, like as a minority, we could advocate, we could speak up. It was super culture gap for me, and then it's good, it's nice. So I started to listen their stories. It was my super culture gap in good meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so my experience was more in bad meaning. And keep in mind, this was like going back like 6-7 years ago. So it's not exactly present day, but yeah, it was a reference. So the company was about 7,000 people in total. There was like less than 10 people that were like non-Japanese that I...
Really?
Oh yeah. And I only knew, I only worked with like maybe 3 or 4 of them. Like, so very small team. What was interesting is our manager, so I think he, and you were alluding to this earlier, like he was starting the path of like, we want to do more business with like overseas companies, so let's hire some foreigners, right? And that was kind of the premise of how myself and a few of the people like came into the company. But then it never went anywhere above like up the line or up the ladder of like inclusiveness or equality or equity. It was literally just, let's hire some foreigners and then tell them like how we do things in Japan. And so that was, my experience here was mainly geared towards a lot of like sessions of like, you know, how you talk to clients. And we even had, I mean, it was like how you guys probably have maybe seen in the movies, or I don't know if like you actually had experienced this as well, but like the secretaries at my company, always women.
Yes.
In fact, we called them desk women, uketsukejo. And so like that was like the term they used. Like if you needed something printed off, you would go and ask the desk lady to do it. And they wore uniforms. So they had like this kind of, it was like a dress, like a one, maybe I don't know the word, but like a one-piece dress. Kind of looked like a airline, kind of like a...
like a
like a nurse. It almost looked like a nurse. Yeah. It was like a white dress with like blue stripes on it. It was kind of like how I imagine like a old nurse uniform. And yeah, that was like, and when clients would come in, it was the women, you had to find a woman, that usually the desk, you had to find a desk woman to serve tea. And that was kind of like coming in, how it started. And for me too, everything had to be in Japanese. And if you try to, you know, talk to clients in a way that was more like, I'm American, so one thing that we do in America is when you have meetings, you kind of have small chat in the beginning. Well, in this environment, like, there was no small talk in the beginning. Like,
super quiet.
Yeah, clients would come in and then you just went straight. The small talk was at the end. So you went straight into business. And I remember one time a client coming in, I kind of started to do like small talk back when I,
In English?
In Japanese.
Oh, you spoke?
Yeah.
Right.
And then afterwards, my boss was like,
Really?
Yeah, cut me off and then started talking business. And afterwards, he's like, what were you doing? Like talking like, nonsense to the client at the beginning.
Really?
And then he was like, no, you do that at the end. In Japan, we know, And so it was like, of course, when you're in a culture, there's a certain, you want to have a certain level of respect towards it. But there was no sense of like, trying to keep, like we had a small team, but trying to keep us like advocating for us. We had my boss, besides bringing us into the company, that was like the end of the advocation. After that, it was like, you're expected to do this and do that. So I don't know if anybody else, I was interested if anybody else kind of had those kind of stories too. So, and in fact, they would even parade us around, like visually, physically.
We have diversity.
Yeah. No, honestly, they would do that. Like yakuins, like these are like the executives would walk by, and my boss would like grab us and put us like in a line. Line us up in front of him and be like, look, this guy's from America. Yeah. Listen to him talk. Hey, say something. It was, and like I said, this was, 6 or 7 years ago. The company has since gotten in trouble numerous times, like publicly, and I've seen them being forced. I don't think that the interesting thing is, I don't think that they ever want to change, but they're being forced by outside pressure. But it's not from internal, from what I can tell, like internal forces that are trying to change, but more in Japan, they're very worried about, reputation is very big here. Yeah. So that's the efforts that I see in DEI. And once again, I'm not like a expert in this, but I think it's more Japanese companies to get more external pressure to do that, rather than, they're super excited to do it like internally. At the time, thinking back to it, at the time, I remember there was like a little short diversity training thing that we did, and it was in Japanese. Yeah, and the main point of it was advocating for people with physical disabilities. So people, in wheelchairs, and, the point of the training was treating them fairly and giving them opportunity. But I remember there was just nothing beyond that, nothing about gender, nothing about people from different cultures or backgrounds.
I see.
So yeah, and I saw everything there. I saw you guys know power harassment, the word. Yeah. That, right in front of me, sexual harassment right in front of me. I mean, it was.
Did you see?
Yeah. I remember the worst one. The one I still remember is I was at a nomikai, like a drinking party.
Oh.
And I was with this wasn't my team. I was with the sales team, and the manager was a male, and he had a buka, like a subordinate female, and like right in front of me, a group of people. There's like 10 of us, at a table, eating and drinking. This was outside of the office, but still, it was coworkers, and he said to her, because this is keep in mind salespeople, if you lost a little bit of weight, clients would be more receptive to buy things from you. And I remember, I'm sitting like 2 people down from him, and she's across, and I was just like, what? But at the time, it sucks because, I was new to the company, and I didn't feel like empowered or even like really trained on what to do in that situation. So I just sat there in shock. Nobody did anything. In fact, like the girl, just was like, oh yeah, you're right. Ja, like from next week, diet shimasu, gamarimasu, and then I'm like, what the hell do I do in this situation? And it still bothers me because I remember that, and I feel like 7 years ago it was a little bit. I feel like now, and you can tell by the reaction of everybody that everybody's kind of thinking that, because there's a mix of girls and guys there. Nobody said anything. Some people laugh. I think even when Japanese people feel a little uncomfortable, what I notice is that they'll kind of laugh, like a nervous laugh. But then, it doesn't really, I think it's the culture. They maybe, and I felt the same way. Like I didn't know what to do in that situation, except just here in Japan, it's kind of hard to tell, how do you report that? Because I think maybe there's some people who work in HR here, but the HR function as well, in Japan, is kind of different too. I remember there wasn't as much avenue to talk to them about this kind of stuff, and I feel like in America there'd be more avenues to report things and get kind of guidance, or hey, I heard this, I think this might be a problem. Can I talk to somebody about if something should be done about it or not? I remember having issues with HR back then. They kind of were like, hey, that's above what we do. Maybe talk to your manager or something. But it's a culture of hierarchies was really strong in the company. So the senpai, there's that senpai kohai relationship. And it's just really hard if you're the subordinate to, do anything to your boss, because they'll say, if you have a problem, report it to your boss, but your boss is the problem, so.
You go up to them, hey, you're a problem.
And hopefully Japanese companies kind of go past the D, and go more into the I and the E. And because I think the diversity, a lot of companies are, they're open to hiring foreigners. They just, and that's just, foreigners is just one, piece of it. But, they still need a lot of work and going above and beyond that, I think. So.
Yeah. そんな感じ
です。
そんな感じですね。Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening our Creative Tech podcast today. We hope our story to help your career and life. See you soon. Bye bye.